It's working, yeah. Okay, cool, man. Awesome. So excited to have you all here. I think what we will do to just maybe kick off the session is a little bit of an experience share about what's worked for you guys in getting B2B sales going, maybe in the early stages. So why don't we start with you, Angel?
So certainly, I think, this is my third time as a founder. In the very beginning in advertising relationships. Again, when it was Homecoming more as just an executive search firm without the platform, it was relationships. And finally, in terms of our new platform now, which offers permanent, part-time, and executive hourly talent, it has been the use of other brains at the time that we need them, when we need them, and for how long.
Melvin, I know you built a hugely successful business. I'd be very interested in your guys' journey and how you've gone about building the sales team.
Awesome. Okay, if you hear me, awesome. Oh no, thank you very much. And I think, unfortunately, when we began our business, we were very young, and so what we did was essentially built an HR tech platform and built and scaled that across 35 countries, but we never had relationships growing in. And so our key hack was really asking our customers and getting them to almost build the product with us was so important early on, because I think none of us had worked in businesses before, unfortunately, we were too young, but just trying to deeply understand that product need that we're solving and not being afraid to be wrong. I think we pivoted a few times in our early product, and so it's just that proximity to customer that was so important for us early on in our journey.
And getting those first initial meetings into the whole corporate world, considering you're young guys, you didn't have a big network. So yeah, I'd be interested how you got those first 10, 20, 50 actual relationships with corporates.
Yeah, and so I guess for context, what we do is we built out, I guess, the Spotify for corporate training. Think of us that way. And so front of mind for us was saying we thought there was a big opportunity in the space, but it was almost having the art of the possible mindset. And so something I really like to do is to ask my customers is, if I gave you a magic wand, what would you want to be different in your processes, in your organization? Using that as a point of not being limited by, if I were to come in with a new ERP, what would that look like, and so forth. And so being very intentional about blue skying it, but quickly getting to the point where by giving the feedback, we're able to use that to build our product and make sure that we have a way in which we're able to have them as a part of the process. And so it was lots of cold calling, to be honest, early on. I mean, I probably emailed most CEOs in corporate South Africa. Thanks for responding to me, guys. And I think it was really about us being smart. But what I realized was that many organizations, people don't actually reach out to the people that actually do the work. Everyone wants to reach out to the CFO, the CEO, the COO. No one's going to the L&D manager and saying, L&D manager, love to get your thoughts on this. I think it's also appreciating that the value in understanding what the BT business should be built is often not in the C-suite, it's often in the manager level.
Okay, cool. So starting at the bottom end and then working up to the manager level.
And now we're here.
Cool. Awesome. Yeah. Trevor, over to you. What sort of worked with in your side in the early days? Eh?
Yeah, I think it was slightly it was different. We actually needed to earn the trust of the executives in what we were doing. Just for very quick context, our business helps localize corporate supply chain spend. So and we offer. And so that seems like on the face of it like a social imperative, and everyone says yes, it's good, but we had to learn very quickly that if we don't link value, and value is money, and saving corporates tons of money, we wouldn't be able to speak their language. So ultimately, whether it's procurement or any type of business that you're in, the language of business is numbers, and we needed to help them understand that if you do the right thing, you can also have a massive financial benefit. And how we got them to get that over the line was effectively doing work for free initially. So we show them that some of our tech can actually unlock savings and localize some of their key commodities within their spend. But we needed to prove the model at an executive level to earn their trust, to allow them to allow us to go into the rest of the supply chain. So we almost had to do the other thing. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Mike, over to you. What's your experience been in the early days?
So, Paul, look, I can talk to this problem from my personal experience with building my own professional services firm, and it is a little bit against the grain. But the reality is that I've used cold calling too. It's basically a philosophy from a book that I read, Predictable Revenue from Aaron Ross. And so Melvin mentioned cold calling too, and it's really about using technology to identify your ideal client profile, and then it's sales is a numbers game, and it's about getting in front of your clients, pitching to clients, and that's really what has been successful for us so far.
So one of the big problems we see with a lot of the companies that we work with is that you've got the founder, he learns to sell, he lands his first 10, 20 customers, the business is getting big, and now he's got what we call the founder sales problem, where he can sell, but he needs to now get out of sales. So I'd be very interested in your guys' journey about actually what you handed over in the early days. What was that first hire that you looked like? What were the first things and then what was the journey to what your team now looks like now? Are you still involved in the sales process? What have you outsourced? And then how have you actually built up a sales team? So Angela, I don't know if we start with you.
So thank you, Paul. I think interestingly, I go exactly against the grain of that. I think, in the early days, so importantly, I think sales, as I said, relationships, but it's all about storytelling. You need a really strong, compelling story that can stick in the mind and stay there and really turn that around. And I think in the old days when I was in advertising, I used to wear big wings everywhere. People would say, "Who are you?" I'd say, "I'm Angel, we're in communication." Or now we do this. Look, everywhere I hope you see relationships are gold, because I don't know if you're going to be my candidate or my client or my colleague or my connection. I think the mistake I made, even in our most recent business, was as soon as we got VC investment, I thought, okay, now I'm going to find somebody to sell for me. And we had the traction, we were going, but the mistake was, okay, then I can get out of the way and somebody else will do that, because I'm so busy. I've got to do the HR piece, I've got to do the ops, I've got to do all these other things to keep it all going. Very, very hard lesson. Nobody can tell a story the way that you can. And also, the solution that we now are bringing to other founders, these frazzled founders who now think that they're so big they've got to step out of the way of leading sales, is let's give them a fractional, what we call a part-time head of people, for example, to look at your performance, see where the metrics are going, how that's looking. Or a head of capital raising, for example, so that the founder can concentrate on that revenue, those sales, where is it coming from, and you can have a remote person in your business from wherever you want them every Monday afternoon looking after those key things that usually get in the way of where you think, I'm so big now, I don't need to head up the sales piece. And obviously that's our big hard lesson, but I'm sure everybody has got a different story.
I guess from our experience, so GoOne.com, check us out. I'm always selling, so still at it now. So I guess where we are today in our journey. So GoOne has about 800 employees, and about 350 of them are in our revenue org. And the reality is that as a founder, you should always be doing things in the organization that have the most value given your time. And so I'm a believer in my early businesses that I would never hire for a role I haven't tried myself, because sales guys can sell. And so when you raise money, you're like, yes, I'm going to hire a sales guy, and once he's burned 3/4 without selling anything, you're out of pocket. And so a big thing for me is still sell, but sell strategically. So for example, you got founders on this panel right now speaking, and so you might go check out our platforms. Selling isn't necessarily going to the customer and demoing your platform. And so don't ever feel like you are too big to sell your platform, because whether you're selling to customers, employees, or investors, you have to have that particular rapport. I think when you think about sales and taking a step back around process, I really love Aaron Ross, Predictable Revenue, highly recommended for B2B sales. But it comes down to understanding your funnel and being very intentional about understanding your funnel and knowing where you add the most value. Because some founders are very good at coming in last meeting and closing with the exco in front. Some are very good at opening that door. And so it's almost a function of where you look to bring in team members in your funnel comes down to your competency first, and then supplement it accordingly.
Awesome, thanks, Melvin. Trev?
Yeah, just to add to what the other panelists have said, I'm actually transitioning right now. So I'm moving away from sales, but you never actually ever move away from sales. So what I've had to do is to understand, okay, where is my time best spent? And it's on big ticket items. And then how do I optimize and systemize the rest of it? And to do that, you would need to understand, we've thought long and hard about the avatars and the different pain points for the different avatars within our customer base, and systemize, okay, so this is the pain point that you're trying to identify. Based on this pain point, this is what the features and the benefits of our product or offering are. And what that's doing is it's allowing me to standardize that with the rest of the team, which allows me to focus on new product development and new concepts that we want to bring into the market and big sale ticket items. So my view is I don't think I'll ever truly move away from sales. It's just where in the process of sales will I be involved, or what new product am I trying to build, and how do I figure out how to sell that product?
So Paul, what I can sort of build on to what all of the panelists have said, and specifically Trevor, is for me, being an accountant, sales is more of a science, I believe. And Trevor mentioned it. For me, the founder, getting the founder out of sales is about building those systems and processes and being really scientific in how the founder actually coaches and mentors the sales team in delegating everything. So it can't happen immediately, but if you're very, very systematic in building the sales systems and handing that over, that in one of my CFO clients over the last 5 years, I've seen 3 generations of sales teams come in. The first one, the first sort of generation failed, and eventually the 3rd generation has succeeded. And it's mostly about being systematic and also having the right, getting the right people on the bus as well.
Yeah, absolutely agree. We've seen that too with WizPass, who was one of our members. They were very successful. I think they managed to get a couple of the 100 listed companies in South Africa. And they were really good at building out a really strong playbook beforehand to do the handover, and then a really strong deck that could actually carry the salespeople in the early days, which I think was kind of building on what you're saying. Another huge challenge we see from a lot of the founders in the network is the first sales hire or hires, getting that right. So yeah, it sounds like, Melvin, you've built a very big sales team, and it sounds like you've done a lot of sales hiring. What would your advice be on getting that first sales hire right?
So the first sales hire for me was a bit different. I'm very big on hiring within the organization, and so often my best sales guys came in as cold callers and then became like account executives and then become account managers and so forth. But I think it's often more the aptitude and willingness to learn. I think if someone has salesperson on their profile, they probably aren't a good first hire for a startup. Because if you're working at a big B2B SaaS company where they get leads delivered to them and they just go and say, hi, I'm from Salesforce, and they close the deal, it's not the right person. So you always want someone who can, 1, has the ability to be personable. I think it's about relationships. But 2, understands your product. And 3, is incentivized by what one gets as a salesperson, which is money. Because the one thing which we're not saying is in sales, it's about commissions. And if someone isn't performance-driven, wants to earn money, there's certain things that won't work out, and I think that's important to consider. But I think if I look at the topic here, just as a side note, is growth hacking B2B SaaS in Africa. And I think the in Africa piece is important, I think. So we have teams across 14 countries now. And within Africa, especially we're setting to, I think, B2B, where B2B is a bit more mid-market and beyond. Maybe SMB is a bit, S is a bit smaller. But just getting trust and being able to be well-liked is so important. Because what trust enables you to do as a B2B company is then get on a company's procurement list or vendor list, which is often the hardest task. If a customer told me, I will pay you 1,000 Rand and I'll do a small deal with you, but we'll onboard you as a supplier, that is often the gate that no one talks about when doing business in Africa. Because once you're on that list, you will see things flow. And I think someone that has the ability to build the relationship with someone at that level to get on that list is more important for me up front.
Awesome, mate. So I think to build on that procurement, Trevor, you know a little bit about that. Yeah. Getting on procurement lists, what would you have to add to that?
Speak to me. Yeah, so I think there's definitely a lot of truth in what he's saying around getting onto the database is one of the biggest and hardest steps initially. That's one of the problems that we try and solve for SMMEs in the market. For us, our biggest problem from a sales perspective is how do we hack trust, right? So how do we because it takes time to build trust, etc., and all of that. And so when we're looking at a salesperson, so we recently just onboarded someone right now, the key differentiator for me was, okay, how big is this guy's network and how much of trust is he built in the market? And so can he get me a meeting to say, I'm working for this company XYZ, ProcureSense, and he's speaking to our avatar, it's the CFO, CEO. So that's sort of one of the things that we've done to hack into the market, because we're trying to solve the problem. Who is the right person, the avatar that we need to speak to? And if you speak to that person, we can test the pain point. If they're not interested in it, we move on to the next. And for that, for our business, we need to have salespeople that are very highly networked and have built the trust where they can just introduce our product to the right person, and that decision maker will tell us whether they're interested or not.
I'd just love to build on that, because this is a perfect example of wanting sort of inside intel around procurement. So what we do for a lot of founders, actually, they might be pitching to a big bank or a big FMCG company. What we can go and find for them is what we call an hourly executive, somebody who might have been the ex-head of procurement for Tiger Brands or the ex-head of investment banking for Barclays, and being able to have an hour or two of their time, buy their time on an hourly basis and get all the inside intel on what to do and what not to do, really we found is a great hack for many founders to be able to go, okay, let me not make these assumptions, or these are the points that I need to dial up. So really, using the network as much as possible, borrowing people's brains when you can to find out what those real insights are when you make your pitch.
So I think to build on that, one of the, obviously the hard challenges around selling to an organization is you're not selling to a single person. So I think, what are some of the hacks that you guys have used to basically understand, one, find champions inside, and then use that champion to understand the organizational influence, and then obviously getting a team of people across the line to make the buying decision. So I don't know if anyone's got anything to contribute around that.
I mean, it goes back, I come from a branding background in my very, very early days, and I think, building relationships, thank goodness for LinkedIn. LinkedIn is an amazing place. I mean, you can attend a webinar from wherever you are, friends with them, I heard you, I'd like to hear you. Nothing beats the face-to-face. But the idea of being able to comment on people, know who's who in the zoo, take pictures of each other, tag each other, find an article that's kind of interesting, and you repurpose it, and you tag the people you want to start talking to. Very quickly, you can start building quite quickly your brand in terms of being able to comment here and there, and people love hearing about themselves, right? As soon as I'm mentioned or I'm tagged by Angel, she might, want to talk to me about something more. I think use the power of making other people feel special and recognized.
Super cool.
Angel tagged me in a post before I met her, and I was like, I don't know I don't know who this person is. This is spam. And so right now, fairly active, I guess, as a VC investor. And I think it's the same thing even with startups. When you're trying to do, how do you do your work to understand what someone cares about, what's important for them? And I think it's either through their posts, it's either through what they share about, even personally, you find someone's name, and being able to understand them as a person, because people buy from people. And people discount that. It's not like because my product's awesome. It's because I like the person, I like what they stand for, and so forth. And so often, to your point around trust, it's about how do you then understand insight from people who already have trust. So it could be the person below the person you're trying to target and saying, hey, let's have a coffee because the junior will give you the time. Or it's the analyst in the fund. And even sometimes it's the service providers who have the trust. And if I'm selling an ERP system, I'm going to go to someone who knows accounting and be like, okay, fine, so what do you think I should be angling here? And so it's about just being able to not almost like collaborate in that journey, because you may have a very strong idea of what you think the problem is, but often the person on the call face knows it better than you do.
And I mean, Paul, just Angel mentioned it, but LinkedIn Sales Navigator is for $1,500 a month. It's one of the best tools out there to actually understand. I mean, your original question was, how do you navigate the politics of an organization? Sales Navigator is amazing in terms of just understanding who's who in an organization. So I would, from a sales perspective, definitely one of the top tools out there, I reckon.
Awesome. Anything to add, Trevor? No. Okay. Okay, cool, super. So the next one I would say is the next biggest problem we see the most with the enterprise sales guys is slow sales cycles. Anything you guys have done that has worked on shortening the sales cycle, on getting those deals across the line with the bigger B2B clients?
So
very quickly, I mean, we do a lot of recruitment, obviously, of salespeople. What we say to the people employing them, obviously, in the beginning, don't make it about comm, give them a good base, but know that that comm's coming, but manage expectations, know that they might be a quick one or two, but everybody's have expectations managed, because I think trying to chase a sale makes people get put off. So just quick input from us.
I mean, from my perspective, what I've seen work so many times over, and I think one of the panelists mentioned it, is don't make price the barrier up front. So go in offer your services for free initially, prove the value, and then once you're in and you've actually proven the value, then it's so much easier to, once you've proven the value, to then actually go in with your proposal. So that would be my.
Just so quickly to add, like what we've done is we recognize, so you have to build trust. So how do we short circuit that? And then the second thing is to validate the pain point. And what we found is working for us is to have businesses or distribution channels that are very niched in what they do, and our product like 10 times is their business value to their existing clients. They've already done the hard yards, built the trust, etc. They understand the pain point that we solve because it's the next layer of their journey, and they become our channel partners, and they've already validated who we should speak to. They've built a relationship, and they know the pain point is matched to us. So that's what we're doing now, and it's working.
Paul, just as a quick counterbalance, I mean, I would argue that enterprise sales don't need to take long if you're selling the right solution. I think many businesses want to be vitamins as opposed to painkillers. When you're in pain as an organization and something's important to you, someone mentioned, Snood on a cyber attack, you will spend the money and make it expedited. And so I'd argue for startups, find out for whom your product is a painkiller as opposed to a vitamin, because you can go to any government in South Africa and go see what their annual performance plan is and see what they've committed to Parliament and offer them a solution for that. In any corporate, read the annual report. The CEO, the CFO will tell you what's important for them for that coming year. And by doing that, you become front of mind.
Amazing. Awesome, guys. So I think we'll wrap it up there. If we can give the panel a bit of a hand.
I mean, it's time for questions.
Time for questions. Okay, cool.
Yeah. You guys know the rule. We start at the back, we move forward. If the mic is past your row, that means your opportunity to ask a question is gone. I see a hand. Any other hands in the back? Let's move down. Any other? Just raise your hand if you have a question, a comment, anything at all. Okay, go for it. Please do stand up, tell us your name, and go for it. Yeah.
For those online.
Okay.
Yeah, there we go.
Hi, my name is Lebu Mashaba from Real PPE Marketplace. We focus on selling or connecting buyers and sellers of personal protective equipment. Now, the target audience is B2B, and because we're a marketplace, we don't want to play in a place where we need to be like an official vendor, because with some of the companies, because they would put us on a 15 or a 30-day payment, and we are more of a cash business. So I'm wondering if your thoughts on that. Do you think strategically, because right now we are finding that inquiries are coming both from the end users, which will be the business, and it will also come from resellers. Who we are also servicing. So the resellers, they buy on cash, but I find that the corporates want to put us on a 30 days, 15 days, and we cannot afford it. Thank you.
Any other questions coming down this way?
One more, can we take that and then we have a conclusive response to all three, just for the sake of time.
Hi there. Yeah, just a quick one. How do you guys deal with difficult clients and customers? Like, when do you actually call it quits? Because sometimes you want the sale and then it's like it keeps going, and like when eventually do you call it quits? And how do you deal with customer concentration risk? I'm not sure how your guys' industries work, but I know some guys have got big clients who make up 20% of their revenue. Yeah, how do you deal with those two issues?
Cool. Last question down here. You had your hand up? Yeah. Can we get the mic down here?
Hi, Cameron here. My question is, when you're expanding and growing your businesses into new territories, new markets, new product offerings, what's your approach to building a leadership team that you can trust, either to handle the operations that you've already built or to tackle the new markets and territories you're entering?
Cool. That's it. No other questions? Joseph, you're thinking very hard. Are you raising a hand? Oh, this was. Can we give Joseph a round of applause and thank you for the topic suggestion? Those are the three questions. Take it away.
So very quickly, I think in terms of our key negotiation levers, we always say if you want less of a percentage, you need to pay on 14 days when the candidate signs the contract. And the payment terms are always right up front in terms of the negotiation, in terms of pricing. And when it comes to when do we actually fire a client, so HR directors are the ones who pay us to find top talent. And we, at the beginning of the year, said we, from now on, will not move without an upfront engagement fee, because there's too many times we try and do stuff on risk and then the role goes away. We have had clients who don't then want to work with us because they won't pay an engagement fee, and that is a massive relief, because then we're not wasting our time with the wrong people. In the beginning it was risky, in the end it really has paid off, because we're really working with people who've now come back to us realizing that it's worth it from the beginning. And just in terms of growing a team, where we've helped other companies grow, is we find ex-heads of those places where they can step in as a fractional head of growth or head of strat or HR director to help give the key learnings to put the right team in place.
Just to build on that, I think if you're talking about on the financing piece, I think it sounds like a great opportunity to have embedded finance. If you ultimately you are giving value by your financing terms or want to offer them, I'd price for it. And so you can actually offer different pricing for someone that wants financing, and 14 days you can invoice factor, you can get quite creative in that regard. I think to your question around I think one, customer concentration, I think two, firing customers. So in my business, we probably have now just under 7,000 customers globally. And the customers are fired have been for two reasons. One, misalignment of values, and two, not the right product for them. I think sales guys, unfortunately, sell very hard. And they sometimes sell things that don't exist in the business. And so you have to fire the customer because they're like, I'm sorry, man, we don't do that yet. But more importantly for me, values is where someone mistreats my team. I'm very big on people. And if I see a client mistreating my team, I don't care how big you are, you're not for me. And so I'm being very intentional about that. I think on the customer concentration, it's more comes down to diversification. And I think it's one of those concerns where it's important for entrepreneurs, if they want to raise capital, again, you mustn't raise capital. VCs will care about your customer concentration a lot, and so think about that even geographically, sector-wise, and so forth. And I think to your final point, I mean, there's probably a whole textbook on that kind of stuff that I could probably share. But the big thing for me that really unlocked it for us was those people that were opening up new markets for us actually must have had to have spent time with our core markets first. So I had a big program where if someone was opening up, let's say the US for me, they had to come and spend time in South Africa for 6 months and then go abroad, just so they understand what we do and our values and our principles as a business.
Cool. So to add to what the panelists said, I think for the first question, just look at their preferential procurement policy. And if you're a black-owned business, you can get paid within the first 7 days. So it's an easy lever to pull in terms of negotiation, because it's in their policies, it's in their contracts. And many times you can actually get paid same day, right? And that's a lever you can pull to use. You're actually just using their own policies to show them that there's a benefit around that, around the corporate specifically. Reverse factoring, there are many solutions where existing players will come in and partner with you so that you can offer the financing solution and you just take a cut off the deal as well. So you can solve that problem around cash flow around that. Concentration risk. Dude, I have the same problem and I got burnt so badly. I mean, COVID, you're talking about 20%, we were sitting on 70% and COVID happened. And so the lesson was learnt in a very, very difficult way. We had to literally just go into survival mode for 2 years, and we're basically coming out of it. And so the big lesson there was, like, I really needed to learn how to concentrate on sales and to really go and systemize, this is the pain point for this sector, this sector, this sector, and also pick specific sectors that we wanted to play in. And we had to go and do all of that work and do the hard yards in understanding, like Melvin said, the sales cycle for B2B businesses is long. And so it means that, like, you have to actually do all of the work now to reap the benefits going forward. There are hacks that we've mentioned that you can do, but most of the time it's long. Your question around extending beyond South Africa, that is something that a lesson I'm trying to learn right now. So when you find out the answer, you can definitely tell me. But to sort of offset that, what I've done is I've joined member groups like Civitas, where there's entrepreneurs that are ahead of me, and I just learn from some of the mistakes they made or some of the things, and then I can leverage off their knowledge for it. So
on that final point, my understanding is that what was core to SAB's international growth expansion was taking South African leaders and putting them into their foreign markets. So I think it was Melvin that mentioned that. And then around dealing with difficult clients, I think ultimately that is the founder or the CEO's final decision, and I think it comes down to intuition, values, and you generally know when it's time to say goodbye to a client. Life's too short for an unhappy customer. That's what I learned from one of the very, very successful founders that I had the privilege of working with.
Awesome. I think a good note to wrap it up. We can give the panel a
Sorry,
round
can
of
I
applause.
I just want to augment one of the questions. Would you recommend anyone on the panel for this? Would you recommend expensive financing tools such as vendor financing and purchase order financing to compensate for those long payment terms that certain specifically startups are facing?
So one quick one. One, make sure you're delivering value that to the point where if you stop doing the service, they will pay you. But I think 100%. I think don't be afraid to use the tools that are in front of you to work that cash flow work, because there are many big businesses that have great revenues but are dying because of cash flow, and don't die alone. Everyone's doing it.
I hope that was helpful to the personal protection equipment lady. There we go. Thank you so much, everybody.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Thank you.
Just ask, just for a picture.